Hello, my name is Angela Schumann and I am the Shakespeare Whisperer. Today I want to ask the question, was Shakespeare a copycat? Did he plagiarise? At first we think, well, surely not. I mean, we're not allowed to plagiarise in school or university, and he's the guy we're studying. He was one of the greatest writers of all time, so surely not. But you might be surprised to find that the answer is yes. Not only was Shakespeare a copycat, but he was a big one. In fact, of all the plays that Shakespeare wrote, only 2 of them were original in terms of their plots, created from scratch. Love's Labour's Lost and The Tempest. Every other play, the story already existed and he retold it. So, okay, that's a little bit of an adjustment that we have to make when we think about Shakespeare. So, okay, maybe he wasn't very good at thinking of storylines, of writing plots. Or maybe more to the point, he's not so interested in the simple storyline. He's not so interested in the sequence of events. Rather, he's interested in how it is told. He's interested in the characters. He's interested in their psychology and in their relationships with each other. As Shakespeare researchers, we find it very interesting to look at those original stories, which we call sources for the plays, and look carefully at things that Shakespeare might have changed. So if Shakespeare introduces a character into a play that wasn't in the original source, that's very interesting for us because we say, well, this character is obviously important. Shakespeare wanted him or her there for a reason, so we ask why. One of my favourite examples of Shakespeare developing a source is The Merchant of Venice. So this story, or rather a similar story, was written a few years earlier by a playwright who was around at the time called Christopher Marlowe, and he wrote a play called The Jew of Malta. Now, The Jew of Malta is about a very evil man called Barabbas, and he's a Jewish man, and he's not complex. He's very psychologically one-dimensional. He at one point kills an entire convent of nuns by poisoning a giant pot of porridge. He says that at night he enjoys creeping around and poisoning wells and killing sick people groaning under walls. Now, at the time, there was a lot of anti-Semitism in England, which means hatred of Jewish people. In 1290, the Jews were expelled from England under terrible circumstances, and so these plays are being written 300 years later, so essentially, a lot of these people hadn't seen or didn't realize that they'd even seen a Jewish person before, and so they were able to more easily dehumanize them in their minds. So a character like Barabbas from The Jew of Malta was a kind of a common conception of Jewish people. Their humanity wasn't recognized. Now, when Shakespeare rewrites or retells this story, or creates his story using the bones of that one, he complicates things, as Shakespeare always does. So the character of Shylock is, of course, based on this character of Barabbas. And at the start, it seems as if Shakespeare is going the same way. Shylock says early on, I hate him because he is a Christian. Now, Shakespeare's entire audience is full of Christians, so obviously that's not going to go down very well. And yet, Shakespeare cannot seem to help but see the humanity of this character, even if he intends for him to be a kind of evil, subhuman monster as people perceived Jewish people to be at the time. Even then, Shakespeare writes in and recognizes the humanity of this person. We see an incredible tenderness when Shylock, who is kind of known for his greediness, talks about his love of his wife and how much he misses his wife. We also see one of the greatest anti-racism speeches when Shylock says very famously, hath not a Jew eyes, hath not a Jew ears and hands? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? If you prick us, do we not bleed? And if you wrong us, will we not seek revenge? And this is, of course, very powerful because it is forcing not only the other characters but the audience to see the humanity of this group of people that they had previously gotten away with seeing as less than human. If you prick us, do we not bleed? We are the same as you. Our humanity cannot be denied. I think that something like that is obviously one of the reasons that Shakespeare is so famous, and one of the reasons that we even remember these stories. Romeo and Juliet, so many of them we probably would never have heard of because they would have died off and been lost in the pages of history had Shakespeare not made them so great and not shown us our own humanity in them. Good on you, Shakespeare. Even if you were a copycat, you did it well.